Good morning. It's the last day of the Pilot Badger culls, but calls for a change in policy continue.
The concern that we have as the Badger Trust is the indiscriminate nature of this culling. The vast majority of these animals don't have the disease. We're not testing the animals for the disease. And I think there are serious, genuine concerns about the humaneness of this shooting operation.
The Pilot Badger culls come to an end tonight. Over the past 6 weeks in areas of Gloucestershire and Somerset, marksmen have been shooting badgers to test if this is an effective, humane and safe way of killing them. They aim to remove 70% of the badger population, which the government says will reduce the spread of TB in cattle in the area. Now, this is the second year of a 4-year pilot and it's controversial. Campaign groups say the majority of people agree the culls should now be halted. Care for the Wild and the Badger Trust have released a Comres poll of just over 2,000 people conducted at the end of last month. It shows 61% want the shooting to stop immediately. While Dominic Dyer represents both groups, he says the public think the government should follow the example of Wales, where other measures are in place, but no cull.
I think they recognise this is a good way to bring farmers, the public, together and to try and deal with this disease without having to kill these animals. So I think we found that this poll shows it's a very popular policy in that sense.
Although 47% of the people you asked agreed that badgers must be culled to control TB in cattle.
Yes, and I think we believe some of that is down to the way this policy has been developed and the way the government and the NFU have put forward their views. We believe, people still have this view that badgers are spreading the disease far more widely than they are actually doing, and that we're not looking at the broader issues around how we can control the disease in cattle. So hence, when you start looking at what the Welsh are doing with annual testing, for example, people very much then move towards the idea that's a better way forward.
Although I'm sure farmers in favour of this policy would point out that you want to use everything, both the testing, some vaccination, some culling of badgers, some cattle controls, and that using everything together, they will argue, is the best approach.
There is an argument there. I think the concern that we have as the Badger Trust, which is shared broadly by the public, is the indiscriminate nature of this culling. The vast majority of these animals don't have the disease. We're not testing the animals for the disease. And I think there are serious, genuine concerns about the humaneness of this shooting operation. So I think they're all sort of issues that are in the public's mind.
How do you think the pilot culls have gone this time round?
I think it's been a much more low-key operation in terms of the policing, less confrontation on the ground. There's been less activity that we're aware of. I believe that probably a significant amount of the animals that have been killed have been via cage trapping rather than free shooting. We believe the numbers are very low, particularly in Gloucestershire, and there's probably a high chance of an extension of the cull to try and bring those numbers up over the next 6 weeks or so if they extend it. But I think all round this has been probably a step change from what we saw last year, less free shooting. I think they've had to take into account some of the considerations from the independent expert panel, but I think it's probably been a slow and very difficult process in terms of getting anything like the number of animals they wanted to kill in the time frame they've had. We just do not know enough about what's been going on in Gloucestershire and Somerset over the last 6 weeks. We have concerns. We've had animals that we picked up that have been shot and it looked like they've died a long, painful death. So, we remain concerned about the humaneness of the shooting operation.
Although those involved in the cull would point out that there has still been some monitoring. Do you expect, though, that we will see another cull next year as planned?
It all depends on the politics, doesn't it? Labour have come out very strongly against this policy. The poll is showing that public opinion is against this. You had the Mori poll a few weeks ago that showed that badger culling was the 5th most common issue of complaint to MPs over the last 12 months. So I think politicians are very concerned about how this goes down on the doorstep. So, the Conservatives could continue this if they can form another government in 2015. No one knows the outcome of that election, but I think all round this is seen as a very damaged policy that is seriously lacking in public support and scientific support to a large degree. And despite the fact that many farmers believe this might still be the right approach, I think there are an increasing number that probably look to Wales and think actually cattle-based measures and vaccination of badgers and cattle long-term might be the way forward.
Dominic Dyer from the Badger Trust.